Okay, I think we have a quorum with all of the commissioners here. Just looking to see if I'm missing anyone else. If you're a commissioner or an ASL interpreter and you're still stuck in audience mode, if you'll use the raise hand feature and we'll get you elevated. But let's go ahead and begin tonight's meeting. The time is now 7:03 p.m. and I'd like to call ANC 5D's November 2021 meeting to order. First, we'll start with a roll call. So 5D01.
Here.
5D02.
Present.
5D03.
Present.
5D04. I'm not seeing Commissioner Blackmail, so we'll look for her in the audience. My name is Sadell Moore, and I am the commissioner for 5D05. 5D06.
Present.
5D07. Okay. Commissioner Cobb, I don't think we can hear you, but I can see you. Okay, I think Commissioner Cobb is having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll see him back before we begin voting. Okay, give me just one moment here. I'm also having some feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great.
All right, so I think we've got that all sorted out. Thanks, everyone. First up is the adoption of the agenda. I don't see any additional changes to tonight's agenda from what was published previously. So I move to accept the agenda as circulated. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda has been accepted as circulated. Next up, we have the October minutes. Does anyone have any changes for the October minutes as circulated? Okay, seeing no changes.
I got a question about the October minutes.
Yes.
Was the letter for DDOT, was that the October letter? Is that on the October minutes? Or
Yes. So the October minutes are the ones linked in the agenda.
Okay.
So that was in October.
Okay, is it, so if I wanted to make a change, do I need to say it now?
To the minutes, you can make a change. To the letter, it's too late to make a change because we already voted on that in October.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I move to accept the October minutes as circulated. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it and the meeting minutes have been accepted. And Commissioner Cobb, if you just want to walk us through the treasurer's report.
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. For October, we had an opening balance of $76,887.95. We had expenses of $11,935.48 for a closing balance of $64,952.47. And most of those expenses were office expenses, along with one payment to our ABRA attorneys.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Cobb on the treasurer's report? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Next up, we have MPD with the public safety report, and I believe Captain Merrill is on this evening. And Captain Merrill, if you haven't already been elevated to a panelist, just use the raise hand feature and I can go ahead and make you a panelist.
Yeah, I think it got me. Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. We
All
can
right,
hear
all
you.
right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right, I've been moved up. Okay. For the month, we had 11 assault with a deadly weapons. The month before we had 10, so that's a 10% increase. We've had 8 robberies, and last month we had 5. The increase in that is due to the construction site robberies, though, that we've been having. We've been working with the foremen and the construction crew. We've had a couple of instances where the crew members have been getting robbed as they've been coming to and from the work site. So that's something that we're working on, but that's what that increase is due to. Burglaries, we had 8 this month. We had 12 the prior, so we're down 33%, and we're down 42% from theft from autos. So that's basically all we have for crime stats. I'm sure people have questions about some of the crime that's happened this month. So whenever you guys have, whatever questions you have, I'm ready for you.
Sure. So what I'll do is just give everyone a brief reminder to please use the Q&A function rather than the chat function for your questions. That way we can keep track of the questions. We'll start with questions from the commissioners, including myself, and then we'll move to questions from the public. I have a question/comment. I know that we, Captain Merrill, had discussed taking additional steps to warn the construction workers in the area about these issues with the robberies at the construction sites, and making sure that there was information for them in multiple languages so that they could stay safe as they're coming to work in our community. Can you talk a little bit about the outreach that you helps coordinate there?
Yes. One of the things we're doing with them, we're trying to get them to, they can designate like a safety crew member. That their job is not to take any enforcement action, but they can be eyes and ears. They see anyone lurking around the site, or if they see someone hanging around, they can notify the foreman. Then the foreman can call us, or they can call us directly, and we can make contact with that individual and make sure that everything is okay with that. And we also start suggesting to them that they get little inexpensive cameras that they can put on their dashboard of their construction vehicles. And then that way they can kind of position their vehicles around the site where they can get some video coverage. So once we think they start implementing those 2 things and that they're more aware at these sites, we think that number is going to come down. It's just a matter of time before we catch these guys as well. Our officers they're on the lookout for them. So it's just a matter of time, because our 5D officers are they're really good, actually. So I think it's just a matter of time before we go ahead and catch them. But in the meantime, if they take some of those steps, we do have flyers that we gave them, that's in Spanish and different languages that can help out as far as the language barriers go. But, if we just think they take some of those steps, they're just more vigilant at these sites, and that we're also visiting these sites more as well. I think with that combination, I think we can go ahead and bring that number down, but it's going to take both of our efforts here. And it's going to take us catching these guys as well, which is it's just a crime opportunity. They're seeing a minute or 2 where they can get to these guys, and they're getting to them. So, that's, once we get everybody working together, I think we'll be able to be more successful with this strategy.
All right. Well, thank you for that update. And I know we appreciate the effort in terms of outreach. Any other questions from commissioners for MPD? Okay. And I'm not seeing any. Oh, Commissioner Rhodes.
Yes, Captain Merrill.
Yes, ma'am.
I had asked about some shootings that was happening in Ivy City. Do you have any updates on those?
We had a couple of them that were domestic. 2 of the domestic shootings we had have been closed. The one at the gas station, where 2 individuals were shooting back and forth at each other, that one unfortunately still remains open, but our detectives are working very hard on them. Were there any other? I believe those are the only 3 shootings we've had within the past 2 or 3 months.
On Corcoran Street?
The Corcoran incident, that was an isolated incident. We think that was just a beef between 2 neighbors. We don't think that's anything that has to do with the community.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other questions from the public. So thank you so much for your report, Captain Merrill. We really appreciate the update.
Thank you, Commissioner. Have a great one.
Thanks. All right, next up, we have Mr. Nokomis Hunter from the Executive Office of the Mayor. Mr. Hunter, I think we just lost your camera, but I can still see that you're there. Let's give Mr. Hunter a moment. Okay, and just Captain Merrill, if you're still there, I think one of the neighbors does have a question about the status of the construction worker, who was at the dealer construction site on 18th Street, and is he okay?
Yeah, as of this moment, he is still. I believe he's still in the hospital recovering, but he is alive and well.
Okay, good to know. I don't know if Miss Butler is here and can speak on behalf of the mayor's office. But if not,
Miss Kyla Woods.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Kyla Woods. I don't know if Miss Woods is here. I don't see anyone. Okay, so we're just gonna move on. And if Mr.
She's here. She's here.
Yeah, but okay, Miss Woods, are you? No, okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. Sorry about that, y'all. So as you all may have heard, on November 5th, it was determined that individuals children between 5 and 11 years old are now eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. We are encouraging that folks go ahead and get that vaccine. If you're concerned about it, please educate yourself. There are so many resources explaining what's in the vaccine to ease any concerns you may have, but it'll help us get back to normal as soon as possible. In that vein, I'll start beginning on November 1st, any adult who is regularly in a school or a child care facility must be vaccinated against COVID-19. So there is no longer that test out option. And in that vein as well, for folks playing sports, winter sports are kicking off. And so for our kids that are involved in sports, vaccinations are also required. I'll hop really quickly to Home for the Holidays, which is beginning in 2 days. EOM in concert with DHS is going to launch the district's 5th annual Home for the Holidays campaign. So it really works to find the district has a lot of resources, but sometimes they can be a little bit cumbersome to access all over the place. So when we do these events, when we do these campaigns, the goal is to create more of a holistic approach to address housing. This began in 2017, and since then 1,500 people have been able to maintain permanent housing. And so that's the impact of these campaigns. And so please get involved. Lastly, I'm going to just throw this in the chat as well. When we get 311 concerns or things you've been working with agencies to support, please use the app because once you enter your service request, you get a number. That number makes it really easy for Nokomis and I to reach out to those agencies and say, hey, this is the exact case we're talking about. And it kind of eases a lot of confusion in those initial emails. So I'm going to pop this in the chat as well. And Nokomis and I's contact information.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So first off, we'll start with questions from any of the commissioners for the mayor's office, and then we'll move to questions from the public. So any questions from the commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Rose, go ahead.
Yes. Kyla, did you say that the children were mandated to get vaccinated in order to go to in-person class?
No, not at all. I was just speaking to sports.
Okay.
And let me make sure, and so those are athletes 12 and over must be vaccinated to participate in school-based sports. But there are no mandates for the kiddos.
Okay. And what about, do we know anything about some of the children that's been exposed have to be home all the time? So did they switch to online for the children that have siblings that continuously get exposed to the virus, and they have to quarantine and they have to stay home? So they're going to be behind. And I know there wasn't an option for online learning. Have they changed that? Have the mayor changed that?
Let me circle back. I'm not quite sure if there have been any recent changes to that vein, but I'll circle back to you on that.
Okay, thanks, Tyler.
No problem.
All right, thank you. And so we did have one, I'm sorry, who's the next?
This is Commissioner Cobb. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I understand that there's going to be a vaccine pop-up clinic for children 5 to 11 at Center City, Trinidad on November 17th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that by reservation or is it first come, first serve, or what's the queuing system for that?
Just first come, first serve. No reservations at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. And then the only question I saw from the public was just a reminder that if you could please put your information in the chat, and I see it's right there. So anyone who is on the meeting looking for information on how to get in touch with the Mokers, you have that in the chat. Okay, all right, thanks so much. And next up, we'll hear from Silas Grant on behalf of the Ward 5 Council Member's Office.
Good evening, ANC 5D. I have just a couple of quick updates. The first is back on October 20th, 2021, our office released a communication stating that we had made a number of requests to DDOT for traffic calming measures throughout the ward, including a number of speed hump requests. And so thank you to the 5D commissioners who gave us input on locations where you all thought that traffic calming measures should be. And we're still collecting information from residents and from the commissioners. So Kelly Sislow, who's our constituent services director, has been taking those requests. And so I'll put her email address in the chat as well as mine, and you all can copy me on the email to Kelly to let her know if you have any additional requests of DDOT. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. I know Commissioner Sedell Moore, I know you had mentioned publicly that there were some spots that you got that you were happy about. So we want to continue to push to make sure that we have as much in place in terms of traffic calming measures. From a legislative perspective, I know you all have heard me talk about this a couple of times at previous meetings, but the council on October 19th passed the baby bonds bill, which is a bill aimed at closing the racial wealth gap here in the District of Columbia. As I stated before, the average identifier of wealth for white families is $284,000 in comparison to the average for Black families at $3,500. And so that's an 81x sort of difference between white families and Black families. The council member moved to pass a bill that would allow families that are up to 500% above the federal poverty line, which is equivalent to $132,000 for a family of 4, to receive deposits on a yearly basis. The initial deposit for a child born in 2022 or beyond would be $1,000, and then yearly they would receive up to $2,000 based on their household income. And again, the purpose of this bill was to close the racial wealth gap. And so we are definitely happy that we were able to work with the other council offices to get that passed. The final thing that I wanted to mention, Commissioner Sedell Moore, we definitely need to close the loop on the 1835 H Street situation. I was offline for about 2 weeks in the month of October, but I'm now back online. So I do want to have a discussion with you at some point later on this week, if not this week, next week, about not only that location, but a number of locations in your SMD in particular that where you all have experienced illegal construction or at least construction issues. So we want to make sure we continue to put a focus on that. The council member came out to your SMD a few weeks ago, and we made some commitments that we want to be able to follow through on. So with that, that ends my presentation, and I'm open to any questions from commissioners or the community.
Okay, just a reminder to members of the public, if you want to type your questions in the Q&A so we can keep track of the questions. We'll start with questions from the commissioners and then we'll move to questions from the public. I'd like to start out by saying thank you. I really appreciate the council member coming out. We have several sites where we're just having intractable issues in terms of getting DCRA to help us address illegal construction. Even now, the fence around 1835 has been down for over a week, and we can't seem to get an inspection schedule to even get them the entire side of a fence. It's blocking the sidewalk just completely down for the past week and a half, 2 weeks. And so I am, definitely going to follow up with you all about what we can do to get these documented in a timely fashion, because I think what keeps happening is, we'll file a complaint and then it's several weeks later that they actually do the inspection. And so that's not quick enough turnaround time to really catch what's going on at these sites. So I appreciate the council member coming out to hear about that. And I've sent that list to Ms. Sislo since you've been on leave. And so we'll continue to follow up and work on trying to get some better service for the community for DCRA. But I do appreciate the help so far. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, this is Commissioner Brandy's back now, 5D04. I do appreciate you and all of 5D and helping out getting these speed humps up. But there's an area, some of the areas, they have the signs up, but not actually the speed humps.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a walkthrough in my area. The speed hump signs went up on October the 21st, just before his little hearing. Okay, nobody has been back in the area since to actually put some of the speed humps up. The signs are up, but the actually speed humps are not up.
Okay, yeah, I know in other parts of the ward, we also observed that there was a staging process where they placed the signs down and then came back around. You mentioned October 23rd. That is, I guess,
October the 21st. I was home when they came out here. They put this, as I said, they put the speed hump signs up and have not came back yet in some of the areas to actually put the speed hump down.
Okay. So I'll check with Kelly on that in our office to see what the expected turnaround time is. If you mentioned October 21st, and that's maybe about 3 weeks. So I don't know if that's a standard sort of turnaround in terms of response or if that's abnormal. So I'll check on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners, comments? Commissioner Hoffman?
Hello, hey Silas.
Hello.
I've seen some documentation about the mayor's support of local to local streets with always stop control. Some other ANC commissioners have shared some information about that. Can we count on the council member's office to support getting these stop signs installed in these local to local streets, not streets that are a mixture of different kinds of roads, but just inside of a neighborhood setting where we've been asking for stop signs for a long time and DDOT has not allowed us to have the stop signs installed. But the mayor clearly has that as a priority in her transportation outline and Vision Zero outline. We'd really like to see, yeah, these have been requested for a long time and the answer's always been no. But now that the mayor is making it a priority, I'd like to see us be able to move ahead with some of these stop sign installations.
Yeah, certainly. So I can give you an example of another area where this sort of request has been made known. The council member was actually out in Brookland maybe about a month ago with DDOT's director and a number of residents in response to the unfortunate tragedy, the death of Allison Hart, 5-year-old child who was killed on her bicycle. When we met with the director at the site and we did a walkthrough, one of the things that residents made us aware of was that these requests, as you all know, go in individually, right? And then they get installed individually. And what happens is that the drivers in particular, their behavior changes at that one intersection, and then it pushes it elsewhere. And so one of the things that we agree with that the residents made a suggestion on is having like a full like blitz where they all get installed at once so that you can have the biggest impact immediately. So to answer your question, I think in general, we definitely support that. I have not seen the street intersections in Trinidad or Ivy City or any other 5D area to know specifically where the requests are coming from. But I would say in general, I think one, we support that, but then secondly, the mechanism or the way in which they do it is also important. So hopefully, if they're able to get those approved, that they're all able to be installed like at the same time so that we can have that impact where behavior changes for the better.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Not seeing any, so we'll move to public questions. Maria Novell. I live in my multi-family building and I rent out 3 apartments. One tenant's rent is paid by DC Behavioral Health. His October and November rent has not yet been paid. We call and email staff members at DC Behavioral Health and either don't get a response or get inaccurate information. Last time we spoke to someone, they said the rent would be paid on Friday. Friday came and went and we did not get any payment for his rent. It says, actually, I am Linda Vernouille. Maria Novella is the husband's name.
Okay. So what I would ask is I've left my email in the chat as well as Kelly's email. And so if you could email us the details of that, and we can reach out to DVH to figure out what the process is and why it's been 2 months late. So I don't have an answer right now, but if you could reach out to us via email, we'll be certain to get an answer for you.
Okay. All right. Josh Joseph. What is the status of conducting a traffic study on Bladensburg Road? I think that is probably a question for directly for your commissioner. I know that we have a long list of these, across Ward 5 for traffic safety assessments. And also DDOT just debuted a new tool where you can go to ddot.dc.gov and type in a particular address and find out the status of the traffic safety assessment. And that question is actually from John Healy. Everyone's typing for someone else tonight. But just wanted to remind folks of that. I mean, since it's such a long list, I don't want to kind of get into the wrong information about what the status might be. And the status is changing for so many of these day to day at this point. Okay, not seeing any other questions for the council member's office. Mr. Grant, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you as well.
Okay, all right. Have a good evening. Next up, we have a special presentation, and this is really just to more so update the community on what's going on in terms of, some of the redistricting chatter around our community, especially in Carver Langston. And so just want people to be aware of what's going on there. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see some of the maps that are currently under discussion. so that you'll be aware of what's going on here. But basically, in our neck of the woods, there are at this point unlikely to be any changes. At one point, there was a discussion of splitting up our neighborhood along Maryland Avenue and then moving the southern portion that you see my mouse kind of hovering over here into Ward 7 and leaving the northern portion in Ward 5. That was a topic of discussion early on in conversation. But as we know who live here in this community, you'd be splitting several apartment complexes into 2 separate wards, and more than likely across at least 3 different ANC single member districts. So that kind of thing, just like you wouldn't go in doing some healthy, normal redistricting and split up a college campus or, a hospital campus. It doesn't really make sense to have tenants who are paying rent in one ward and then walking across the street to another ward to live. And so it just didn't make a lot of sense as a plan. I testified. I know Commissioner Rhodes attended several of the round tables as well, just to make sure that the council members who are making the redistricting efforts are aware of the fact that for, a variety of reasons, that kind of line doesn't make as much sense in our community since that's a residential street in our area. And you'd be basically 2 very, very large, made up by 2 very large apartment complexes. So I was happy to see that that wasn't in either maps 1 or 2 on the discussion map. The major change closest to us would be in Ward 7. So as many of you know, currently the line is at 19th Street for Ward 6 to Ward 7. And there's a lot of discussion of moving that line to either 15th Street, as one of the discussion maps show, or some very early discussions of potentially moving that line to 12th Street. So that wouldn't impact our ANC 5D commission at this point, but I think it's just good to have some awareness of the fact that that's going on just to the south of us. In addition, map 3 suggests that we keep the current 19th Street line, and all of these maps are available for you online to study more in depth. But those are the basic 3 suggestions at this point and how they'd impact our area. There is still time if you want to submit public testimony. I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a bit. I think it's important to stay vigilant because these are just discussion maps at this point. We don't know if things will change. My basic belief is that, I want to see a map citywide that promotes racial equity and that does not split up our neighborhood or other nearby neighborhoods in a way that makes it more difficult for communities to advocate for themselves. And so I'd like to see larger commissions if there are going to be ward splits, so that there are at least enough folks on either side of the river to make their own ANC commission and work together in that way. So you have the contact information here. You can send an email, you can leave voicemail, and you can get more information on redistricting at Councilmember Alyssa Silverman's website below. She is the chairperson for that redistricting subcommittee. So before we move forward, I see we've got some questions in the Q&A. Let's see, although they're not about redistricting. So I do have one. So Rodney M. Burton, I live on Maryland Avenue between 19th and 21st. The city has repaved the street, but we need speed bumps desperately. Can you help with that? So we'll look into that. Streets we've submitted a traffic safety assessment for Maryland Avenue, but it doesn't mean that we know what the outcome will be in terms of what factors, what tools they'll use to mitigate traffic So we'll see what the result of that is, and then we'll have further discussion with them if we feel like what they're proposing is not enough. But we did already submit that initial request. Skip Keats. I submitted testimony in opposition to splitting Carver Langston and moving Langston from Ward 5 to Ward 7. Thank you so much, Mr. Keats. Really appreciate that. And anyone else who's interested in doing so can use the information that you see here to get more information and learn about why that proposal doesn't necessarily benefit the community. Okay, any other questions or comments? You can go ahead and get the questions in the Q&A. If you're a commissioner and you have a question, let me know, or a comment. Okay, all right. Thanks so much, everyone. Well, that was quick and easy. Next up, we'll move forward in our agenda back to our normal business, and we'll get on with requested presentations. First up, we have a requested presentation from Ms. Thelma Duren, who is one of our grant recipients. And let's see if we can find Ms. Duren. I see you here. All right. And so I'm going to share my screen so that people can see your lovely photos that you submitted. And you just let us know whenever you're ready to share. First up, we have the food distribution photos. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Miss Thelma. And we did a grant. Well, we asked to have a grant to do fresh foods. So with our fresh foods, which made us different from any other grant that anyone was doing, that means that we had fresh vegetables and fruits. And our design was to serve at least 100 families in the Carver Langston community in our city. And what we did was we just put the word out there that families could come to 2026 Maryland Avenue, which is our community center, and receive food. And we always did it at the end of the month. Now, the reason why we picked the end of the month, because a lot of seniors as well as single parent families, they would be running short of food at the end of the month. So that's the reason why we decided, let's do it at the end of the month, so it would help those families to regain their stability and giving them a nutritional meal. So with that, we in turn, like 1 month, we gave out huge chickens. They were amazing. And then we gave out a bag of peaches, a block of cheese, apple juice, bread, and 3 different other vegetables that were frozen. And then 1 month we gave out potatoes, onions, carrots. And we did fish. As you can see, we did fish and carrots, and it was just amazing. Now, our food program, because we had it for 6 months, we asked if we could do our final month for Thanksgiving. And that's because from people continuously coming and stressing there's a need, we would gladly, want to be able to provide turkeys or chickens, because we're trying to do chickens in regards to portion control. Smaller families have expressed their concerns that I don't need a big old turkey, but I really would like maybe something smaller, like a chicken or a turkey breast. So for our final month, that's what we'll be doing, is dispersing still vegetables, because we ended up partnering. I tell you, I was so excited how we ended up partnering with Miller's Farm out in Piscataway. I was talking to the lady down at the open air market, and I told her what we were doing, and she said, I want to be a part of that. So we loaded, went down, picked up vegetables. Now, when she donated vegetables to go with our meat and the bread and stuff that we had, we were able to give each family 3 huge cantaloupes, greens, potatoes, cabbages, cucumbers, tomatoes. It was amazing. And when I called her later, what it was, I just wanted to see if we could get a cheaper deal to keep our funds at a specific level. Like we would allot 200 for certain things. And then the 500, which gave each family $5 for their meat. We ended up doing great things. And I know that it has been a blessing to the community. People are still calling. People would come and wait for us to finish setting up. Everybody was always telling somebody, and it was a great success. I'm looking forward to hopefully us doing it or being able to keep it going, because with the winter months coming in and, like for myself, I lost one of my jobs. So when I think of other people and how this pandemic has affected their lives, I want to be a part of it. I want our ANC Commissioner, Ms. Seidel and Bernice, they come out and they stand there and bag the food up and get to meet the people in the community. Now, that's what community building is all about. We've been closed up so long, and now we're getting to come out, fellowship. People are actually saying, can I help? When the pandemic has made people more standoffish, we come out, with DC1, we get our gloves on, our aprons on, and we are actually working together and finding out what's going on in our community. And I think that the food, this program was just amazing. It was just amazing to see all the families come out and support us.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that update. And
Yes.
It was fun to also come out and help and bag up the
Yes, it
groceries.
was.
So it was a good
amazing.
opportunity. Yeah. So I'll just say this, just for everyone's awareness and as a reminder, ANC 5D voted, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, to set up different food distribution sites across the area, so that we could help people. We know people were all of a sudden out of work. And for a lot of people, that means that they were trying to figure out where the next groceries were coming from. And I just want to say, of all the sites, I really appreciate how y'all were able to keep this going and really stretch the funds so much by developing those other partnerships to make it go even further. And I'm looking so forward to giving out, groceries this month. The commission did vote unanimously to support this endeavor. And I think we're all happy to see that it went so well. And are glad to see this community update on the grant. So thank you. And then I also know that there was also another grant for family community fellowship. And you all did some workforce development over the summer. So if you could just take a few minutes to tell us about that with the young people.
Now, I am so excited about talking about greens and grounds, 5D ANC, greens and grounds. It was under workforce development, and it was for us to be able to have 5 students that we paid the minimum wage for them to learn how to get into the horticultural experience. We wanted them to be off the street and doing something. We had one lady that had lost her job. She was a part of it. And that changes the mindset that while we're going through, we can still get training to move forward to do other things. I do believe that every morning we did a specific discussion group. That way we got to talk over what we learned the day before, because a lot of them hadn't even seen all the equipment that we got to use, didn't know what it was for. We would do a class and then ask them, what equipment did you use today? And what do you think about the program? Always asking ways to improve it, as well as how are they feeling about it. And I tell you, it was a sense of pride because the other people that stood around the neighborhood got to see them out there making it happen. We went over in Ivory City. We went on Bladensburg Road. We did the train trailers. And I'm telling you, even once our program stopped, our students, 2 of them was here today. They actually are coming out, still volunteering their time to get some of the plants out. We did down in the park down there off of Bladensburg Road. We weeded, and then we actually cleared it away. Then we did, like, if we saw a property that was vacant and the weeds or shrubbery had gotten out of control, we actually went there. And I didn't see them complaining at all. We went and pruned it, cut it down, and cleaned it up. So I think that will let them take a sense of pride with them. I tell you, from working with these people, we had a couple of Hispanics that came out, and with us communicating with them, that made them a part of the community, because that means they came out to see just how, even though it was a language barrier, we still managed to communicate with one another. And I thought that was truly amazing. So when I saw them doing the DAP in the morning, I was like, wow, look at them. They are actually bonding. When we would do the in the morning the classes, and they got to write. And I tell you, it's so important that we have programs like this in our community. Some of our youth, as well as our young adults, the reason why they choose other lives is because they just don't have those other skills. When I saw how they filled out the applications and all that, I could see that when we do, I'm going to speak it into existence, when we do this program again, we will actually do a part on grammar. The simplest thing as writing your name. One gentleman was so frustrated, but I said, no, don't worry, because nobody know it but me, and we're going to do it. Now, what that did was made him feel like, I'm going to stay in this group and I'm going to get something out. And he was 19 years old. Can you imagine not being able to write your name, and now you talking about building your own business? Because see, we gotta keep them busy. We gotta have them doing things. We can't have them sit around, because that's the time they get pulled into other things that we don't want. So I'm telling you, this program was a success. I see it when they come and still talk to me and ask me, is there anything else? And they're going to be a part of the food giveaway. They'll be here. When we got to see the flowers down by the train track, when we cleaned the weeds all the way around the front of the mall, when we went down Bladensburg Road, when we went down 17th Street, just cleaning. And when people are on the sub or the buses and they looking at us, a lot of them be saying like, who are they? But they know they're young, and they know they're busy, and they're doing something positive. I really wish, and I'm gonna speak it into existence, that the next time we will have more people because the youth and the young lady that we had, they actually went out and was telling people, you know, I love this. They was coming to work on time, even though we talked about work punctuality, being prepared. Oh, they came ready.
Well,
And
I'm
it was
so
hot
glad to
this
hear
summer.
it.
Yeah, it was hot
Yeah.
this summer. They were still there.
Mhm.
I could go on and on. I'm telling you, I was so excited about it. And to see them doing great things in their community, that was the most important thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to hear this update. You know, I know
Yes.
I have been seeing the cleaning crews out there,
Yes.
you know, cleaning up and really hitting some of the hot spots where, you know, I think we've all seen some of the areas that are just so overgrown you couldn't really even get by on the sidewalk. So I was very much appreciative, you know, of the work being done. So thank you all for that. And I think, you know, just to let everyone know, we have, you know, a whole process that grant applicants go through. You know, they submit an application, they submit all of their receipts and invoices for any of the things that go into the work that they're doing. And then that goes to the DC auditor. And so not only are they doing the work of making sure that these young people have the opportunity to work, but and you know, doing the oversight there, but they're also keeping up with a significant amount of documentation. You know, to on top of all the work that they're doing. So we really appreciate, you know, how hard you work to make this opportunity possible for those young people, because it's not easy. I do see we have a bunch of questions and comments for you here.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So Skip Keats, or actually, if we have any questions or comments from the commissioners, then we'll move to public questions. So anything from the commission? Okay, I'm not seeing anything from the commissioners, so we'll move to public questions. Skip Keats says, when the food is distributed, are recipes distributed as well? Just curious.
We tried that for a little while, but what we did was we ended up doing it where we said the food groups, we started working with that instead of the actual menus, because our community is so diverse. We have so many different nationalities out here that what we might use it for, another person won't use it for that. There are some families that wasn't big on the dairy products. So what we did was, whenever anyone came to get something and they wanted to share information with us about what they did last month, that's when I started taking notes. And we've been talking about doing like an international day. That is the reason why every month also we decided on, like, I don't know any other organization that gave out fish. When we gave out fish, it was so good to taste different ways people prepared the fish. So that's primarily what we did. We moved on the nutritional part, a well balanced. And not this time, we didn't give out menus, but one time. But in the future, that's going to be our goal.
Well, that's a great one. And there's so many neighbors had this question. I won't even attribute it to any one person, but how do neighbors help / get involved? You know, it's the big question that everyone's asking. You know, people love to cook, people love to help out, you know, in terms of passing out food. So how can they get involved with helping out, especially with November still coming up?
Yes. Well, I'm going to put it out there. I'm located at 2026 Maryland Avenue, and I'm here from 5 to 6 days a week. I've been in Carver since 1975. I love Carver. I'm committed to them. My number is 202-320-5072. I am building volunteer staff. One time it was real big, and then the pandemic came and it dwindled. But if you're interested in volunteering, please give me a call. I'm always entertaining the idea of working with other people. And that way I get feedback and I'm able to tell the church what they might want to do, the board that, that's with the association, what we might try to do. And then myself and a few others, we do a homeless thing, and we're always planning to do something. So what you would do is you can stop past my office at 2026 Maryland Avenue, give me your information, and then what I'll do is I'll continuously reach out to you. And I welcome everybody, young or old, because that's how some of the youth started out with us. It's just volunteer, handing out the juice. They was hooked.
Mm-hmm. And if Miss Thelma, I'll just ask if you can put your telephone number in the chat at the end of the questions for you. I think we have time. I'm going to give you one more compliment from the Q&A. I think we have time for one more question. Jamal Muhammad says, this is fantastic. The cost of groceries has also increased, causing more need. And then the last question I'll go to is, per the workforce development, any way by which residents could hire the teams to help with lawn care? Asking because we have condo associations that might be interested. So I know that that's definitely something to look into. Our grant program as the ANC has ended, but these young people are still members of our community. And I'm sure Ms. Duren can help you get into contact with them, especially now that they're fully trained and ready to work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to that, the gentleman that actually did the training for them has a business, a lawn, and you can see his work over at the Days Inn. Whenever you might have seen the workers over there, we go over, get the gas, go back to our community, and we do everything. Now, what happens is he's hired a couple of them, so they're always working with him. So that's the way it catches on. That's the way it catches on. He's now doing that, but our grant ended, but our youth are still working. So that's going to help them to learn the depth of, how to put the plants in, how to winterize them. So they're still learning. So yeah, that should be the next thing that we move into, is reaching out to, like, we're trying to get our property to actually bring them on to cut the grass.
That would be good. That would be good.
That
Well, I
would be
love
so
to hear it. And we did have one more question, and this is really for me and for us as the commission. But they were asking, what was the total amount of the grant originally? And all said it was $25,000, which was not quite even a third of our grant budget. So we are actually still working. We had quite a significant grant budget, and it takes a lot to get one of these grants through. So it actually requires a lot of effort for us to even be able to spend the money. So we are still accepting applications. If you see our website, please submit if you have an idea like this, like Ms. Duren submitted her application. They really are for people in the community, to be able to do things like this. And so, the more grant applications we can get to support activities like this, the better for us, because we do have certain goals, and we're, actually having an excess of funds to go out for our grants. So please, more people apply. It's the long story short. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Duren. We really appreciate your update. It was just great to see how that turned out. It's lovely to see things like that in the community, and that you were able to do this so consistently over a 6 or 7 month period at this point. So really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Thanks to 5D, I made it happen. I appreciate y'all very much. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Yes.
Our next presentation will be from Mr. Brodrick Spencer on Langston Terrace Dwellings new upcoming master plan. So Mr. Spencer, I think we have audio for you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. And then there we go. We can see it. All right, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that was a hard act to follow, but I will definitely try. So good evening, everyone. Thank you, commissioners and residents, for your time. My name is Brodrick Spencer. I am an urban designer with the DC Housing Authority, the District of Columbia Housing Authority. I wanted to just kind of give you an introduction and overview of what we have coming up at Langston Terrace. We're doing a master plan called the Revitalization and Sustainability Master Plan. So the purpose of this presentation is really to give kind of a background and overview of the project, the opportunities that we at the District of Columbia Housing Authority see, and really kind of lay out the plan that we have for engaging with the residents. And I'll kind of quickly go through the presentation and we can touch on specific points if you guys have questions. We are very excited about this project. We feel that it can be very impactful for all neighborhood residents because it's so close to so many different neighborhoods. So you have obviously Carver Langston, but it's also in very close proximity to Kingman Park, the Street Corridor, and Trinidad. So we believe that this project could bring a number of benefits to the entire neighborhood, one being because of this identity of Langston Terrace. Langston Terrace was the first federally funded public housing site in DC, and it's the second oldest public housing site in the nation. It was built by Hilliard Robinson, who was a very famous African-American architect, and it is currently listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So Langston Terrace is one of our most historic and iconic properties. So we're very excited to be able to bring this kind of plan to this area. The location of it itself. So it's at the very edge of Ward 5. We believe that this could be a very conservative gateway into Ward 5 going up along the road. And as I mentioned, we see this benefiting all the surrounding residents. We will obviously work with our residents of Langston Terrace, but we really want to make sure that this project is integrated into the surrounding neighborhood and community. So we're planning to engage with a number of residents at different meetings, which I will also talk about in a little later. And finally, the proximity to 8th Street and the Benning commercial corridor. So we know that the district is putting a lot of attention to this area. We've had conversations with the DC Office of Planning about their plans for extending the commercial kind of corridor further along Benning Road. So we know that the district overall has put a lot of attention to this area as well. So for all of those reasons, we think that this can be a very successful and impactful project. Just going through the project goals and objectives. So the project goal is to create a revitalized campus that can provide our residents with a healthy, safe, and just a really good living experience. And I guess the key takeaway, because there are a lot of objectives, obviously, that go through with the project, but we really want to enhance living conditions for our residents. We want to do so in a way that benefits the surrounding neighborhood. And we want to respect the historic character of the site. So I'll kind of briefly touch about some of the project objectives we have specifically. So look at improving living conditions. We want to look at individual units, kind of look at working with our residents to conceptualize new unit layouts, but also address the quality of the open space that our residents have. If we look at providing open space, so increasing resident access to physical activities and providing recreation space for all ages. And then I'll briefly touch on the achieving net zero energy in the building. So I'm going to create a plan that will align with the district's future net zero energy requirements for building. So there's a lot of kind of ideas and kind of aspects of this plan we will be touching on. And this is also why we're very excited about it. So this is just site context, so familiarizing everybody with the site. So here you have in yellow Langston Terrace, this site along Benning Road, again located in the Carver Langston area, or sorry, Carver Langston neighborhood. And again, I mentioned it was designed by Hilliard Robinson, kind of it being the second oldest public housing site in the country. But the site is also nearby a good number of district landmarks. So you have the National Arboretum to the north, you have Langston Terrace or the Langston Golf Course, RFK Stadium to the south. So in addition to that, you also have this pretty substantial campus of school. So Spingarn High School, an education campus for Young, Brown, Phelps, and Spingarn. So Langston Terrace itself has immediate access to a good number of parks and recreation spaces, and all of this is within a half mile, so like roughly 5 to 10 minute walk. And then this is kind of the ideas that we at the district will be kind of bringing to the table when we eventually have a master planner, but also when we're working with residents. We really view this as an opportunity.
Sorry, just one moment. If I could ask you to just slow down just a little bit. The ASL interpreter is having some difficulty keeping up.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a little, sorry.
No worries. Yes, I apparently speak fast when I'm nervous, so. Yeah, this is kind of just showing these transformative opportunities that we see for this site, both the neighborhood and at the site level. This is kind of representing our initial thinking, but as I mentioned, we will be working with residents to get their input, and that will inform the actual master plan. So looking at the neighborhood's opportunities on the left, you have the links to Terrace site in blue. As I mentioned earlier, it's in close proximity to a number of parks. So we would look at making more formal connection to those nearby parks. There's also an opportunity to increase multimodality. So looking at introducing bike lanes. I think based on our analysis, there's currently only one bike lane on 19th Street, but there is obviously opportunity to extend these bike lanes north and also have them going along I Street and Maryland Ave as well. And then,
Mr. Spencer, one of residents, I guess they can't hear you. They're saying, could you please speak up a little bit?
Sure. Let me turn my
Thank you.
headphones up too. That might be the issue.
Mhm.
And then also, we wanted to look at the site opportunities. So looking at or thinking about improving site access and connections to the surrounding neighborhood, reducing physical barriers into the site, and again, looking at the possibility of additional parks and recreation spaces for residents of all ages. And then one final point I'll mention about site opportunities, we are actually looking at the opportunity of introducing ground floor retail. So the boiler room on the corner of Benning is also a historic property. They're looking at the potential of introducing some kind of retail opportunity that kind of bring an added activity to the neighborhood. This is really what I want to kind of focus on, looking at our resident approach for getting feedback in our outreach and getting an approach. So as I mentioned, we will be working with our residents to kind of gather their feedback, but we want to include certain neighborhood residents. We want to include members of the ANC, getting their feedback. So the plan, master plan going forward, is a form of resident advisory council. So that would be made up of Langston Terrace residents, service providers on site, and adjacent neighborhood residents. And I've actually spoken to Commissioner Blacknell about this, some of our residents as well. We will have a more formalized process for actually, I guess, picking the residents that would be part of this resident advisory council, but I want to make sure that and emphasize that one of the big points that we want to emphasize for this is we will build coalitions at this master plan. We want to make sure that everybody that will be potentially impacted by this master plan has a voice, that their input is really what's going to be driving this master plan forward. And we want residents, the ANC commissioners, we want you involved throughout this process. There will be multiple opportunities to give feedback on a number of topics. So here you have some of the examples of what we'd be looking at in the master plan. So rehabbing buildings, looking at parks and recreation space, looking at preserving historic resources, through public meetings, through visioning exercises, through workshops. These will be all these opportunities to get your feedback, and this will be what drives the plan. Because the feedback will shape the master plan, it's important for us to be able to meet to as many residents as possible. And I know that on a previous conversation, I also had members of the ANC Commission. There was a fear that resident input would not really be taken into account unless you read. There was a fear that, you might be listening to us, but, are you actually going to kind of take that into account? I want to kind of allay those concerns. At every step along this process, we'll be having multiple meetings with the smaller committee, with larger public meetings for the residents to get your input. And then that next step, that input will be basically what drives the master plan. So if you're saying you would want more kind of focusing on the parks part, that will kind of drive the concepts that us in the master planning can kind of work on, then come back to you all and be like, is this what you guys would like? Should we change anything? So there's going to be a give and take, always where the residents are kind of giving us the feedback of what they'd like to see in this master plan. And then this is kind of just an overview of the framework, looking at some of the potential concepts that we're looking to develop. And again, this will be based on resident feedback. So because it's a historic site, historic preservation will be a very big component of that. Net zero and whole building design, looking at having collaboration with all parties involved to make these buildings energy efficient, have the mechanical systems and materials in these buildings be energy efficient. The goal of this is really to have a building that's more cost effective over its lifespan. Looking at stormwater management and landscape design. So working with the topography of the site, because it is a very steep site. So there is potential for flooding during heavy rain events. So that's something that the master planning team will be looking at as well. And then the final thing I'll talk about is the residential unit design. So this would be something where residents will have a direct kind of say and input into developing new concepts for unit layout. So that's something, again, where residents will be informing us, helping us to come up with ideas, and then we'll be taking their feedback, kind of developing a concept and present to them, to you all, to kind of move that along. And this is just a tentative master plan. This is envisioned as a 12-month, so a year-long planning process. We are very close to having a master planner selected. And I just wanted to kind of point out in this timeline, the multiple meetings that we plan on having along both with the Resident Advisory Council, the ANC, and public meetings. So there are a number of meetings that we are having set up for this, as well as opportunities to kind of have the concepts that the master planner developed presented back to the public. And we're looking at sometime in winter of 2022 in this final report, after we have kind of the recommendations and implementation strategy finalized. So I know that was a lot of information, but feel free to, I guess, if you have any questions, we can have those answered.
So I want to say thank you for that. I think we had a lot of challenges in terms of being able to hear your audio. So I think what we might do is maybe invite you back. I'm sure you'll be back anyway to share as the new phases of the project come on. So what I'll do is I did squint and listen as hard as I could, but I'm aware of your project because we've spoken before. But I just want to remind the audience, if you will put your questions in the Q&A box so we can keep up with them rather than in the chat, the eternal reminder from ANC 5D, if you could please do that so we can keep up. And then I will move first to commissioners for questions. And then after we get questions from the commissioners, we'll move forward to public questions. So any questions from commissioners, if you'll go ahead and let us know.
Mr. Spencer, can you go back to that last slide just for reference?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Blackmore, I think you had a question.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead if you have one. You want to look at the slide?
My question was, in terms of this timeline that you have here, is there anything that would potentially delay these forged dates that you have?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Is there anything that would
delay?
is there anything that would potentially delay this plan that in terms of this timeline that we have here in front of us?
I would hope not. We kind of this plan out for, I guess, participation. We made it clear that we anticipated this being a year-long process. So in terms of like the information that the master planner might need to collect, I guess scheduling meetings with residents, making sure that everybody that we want to get feedback from is actually available. But I think there's definitely flexibility with it being such a long process, where hopefully we can kind of condense or shrink some schedule apart to make sure that we're actually on track in the timeline.
Gotcha. And then just to follow up, in terms of the feedback that you're requesting from the community, how is that pretty much interpreted? How is that taken in with your agency? I'm speaking on just from prior experience with other DC agencies that seem to collect the information, but we just don't really see it go anywhere else from there. So how is that information collected, and what do you exactly do with it?
Right. So I think forming the Resident Advisory Council is kind of one of the ways we want to make sure that this information is collected, but also kind of acted upon. So the public meetings, that'll be kind of where we get everybody's kind of initial thoughts. That would also be where we present kind of our ideas. And the idea with the Resident Advisory Council is that they kind of focus small group where you'd have kind of more in-depth detailed discussions. So they would also be able to relay information back to the public, and they would tell us about any concerns that residents and the public may have. So I think we have it set up for around 3 or 4 kind of larger resident meetings, like the full resident meetings. And then either before or after, we would also have meetings with the Resident Advisory Council to kind of get that more detailed information distributed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Commissioner Blackmore, I believe you were next.
Yes, I have a question there. It's in reference to that boiler room there. That boiler room that you are referring to is on the boiler room on Benning Road. It's small. It's supposed to be the old Pepco power plant. Is that what that's the boiler room you talking about? That's going to take a lot of work, sir. Okay, it's a lot of toxic chemicals in there and everything. So you think you're going to be able to pull that off? Because it's a mess down in there. Okay, it's a mess. It has a lot of old drums down there and everything. And my second question is, have you talked to Miss Esther Hadiya, the president of the Resident Council of Langston Dwellings?
Yes, I actually spoke with her yesterday.
Okay. Now, you want the residents to be a part of this. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you have already talked with her and everything. Can you put your information in the chat room? Because I know it's going to be some residents that will be interested in this and everything.
Yes.
And this, I would like for you to keep me updated as the agency commissioner, and keep 5D updated. But I also would like for you to keep Miss Esther Hadiya updated, since she is the president of the Resident Council of Langston Dwellers, because she may have some residents down there that may be interested in everything.
Yeah, no, I specifically spoke to her to kind of let her know what we were thinking in terms of forming that council. and to ask her if she had any residents that she thinks might be interested. So yes, I've had that conversation with her and plan on staying in contact with both her and you and the rest of the ANC commission as well.
Thank you,
To answer your,
that's all I ask is communication, because in the past that has not been done.
right, yes, no, I understand. But that is part of having part of forming this resident advisory council is to be able to relay information in a way that's kind of more easily disseminated. We don't want to kind of have you know, somebody kind of miss if they aren't able to make a meeting, for example. I think the resident advisory council will be a way where we can still make sure that residents are informed of what's happening.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Commissioner Rhodes, we'll go to you, and then we have time for probably one or two community questions. So Commissioner Rhodes.
I'm just going to continue off of what Commissioner Blacknell was saying, because you can get, you said you spoke to someone yesterday, but you can get one person and you might get 3 people in the meeting, but you're affecting maybe 2,000 or 3,000. So what are your plans in reaching everyone in the community and not just a few? Also, the Pepco plant, like Commissioner Blacknell said, is full of toxins. There's a lot of cleaning up that needs to be done. And how will the residents know for sure that it's been cleaned completely and fully and is safe for whatever project that you're proposing?
So,
That's what I forgot.
yeah. So I guess I'll answer the boiler plant question first. We are, before we take this master plan off, we plan to have a structural analysis that would also kind of look at kind of the environmental issues that you're mentioning. So we're aware of the kind of you know, some of the toxic chemicals that are present on the site. And one thing that I will also say, this master plan, it's taking a year, does not mean that after it's done, all of this stuff is going to be built. The plan would be to, especially for the boiler plant site, to get a developer on board, if that's something that we kind of find is feasible through the master plan. And that would be a longer term process that would, again, involve kind of removing all of that toxic chemicals. So this is not something that will be rushed with regard to the boiler plant. And then I guess to your question about making sure we reach residents who aren't able to show up, I think we would like to start hopefully doing in-person meetings again and go to locations where residents can actually attend. And we've also explicitly for the master plan that we're looking for, asked for a concrete plan to reach residents, working parents who might not be able to make a 5 o'clock meeting, that kind of thing. So we are aware that kind of reaching residents that have a difficult time maybe making a meeting is imperative in order to get good feedback. So we're making sure that with whatever master planner comes on board, that's something that they're aware of, that we want to make sure they have a plan up to reach out to residents to get the greatest amount of feedback that we can.
Well, thank you for that. So we had a bunch of questions. I want to just kind of, since a lot of them were really the same question phrased differently, point out that, you know, we had some audio issues. We will have Mr. Spencer back, you know, and we'll work on the audio to see if we can improve that so everyone can hear. But basically the gist of tonight's presentation is an introduction. Mr. Spencer will be back at various phases of this project. And what he said tonight is that they have not developed a master plan yet, because I saw questions about, well, what's in the master plan? They don't know yet. They're telling us that they're going to start working on one, is what Mr. Spencer shared with us tonight, and that currently they are working to hire a planner so that we can the early phases of community feedback on what we'd like to see at the site. So that's kind of the short version of what happened this evening. So in terms of what's in the master plan, no one knows because there's no master plan yet.
Right.
So hopefully that answers about half of the questions there. And all of these questions about, construction and all of that. We don't know the answer on the time frame when people would have to be out of the building or any of that just yet because we don't have a plan yet. So I think that answers most of the questions. And then this question about the Arboretum, that's not related to Mr. Spencer's site, which is Langston Terrace dwellings. So I will come back to that question during the community question and answer session, but we want to stay on topic and on schedule. So I'll come back to that one later. I don't see any questions that are related to the site that Mr. Spencer could answer at this point because the plan has not been developed yet. Okay, but Mr. Spencer will be back. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Next question. Next presentation. Office on Racial Equity. We have Dr. Amber Hewitt with us tonight to give us an introduction to the work that her office is doing. We'll see what she has to share with us. Dr. Hewitt, whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Thank you. One moment while I make the screen bigger.
That's all right. You just take your time. And usually if you go under slideshow, it'll give you the option to start from the beginning.
Yes, one moment.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your patience and thanks for having me this evening and accepting our invitation to speak with you all today. My name is Dr. Amber Hewitt. I've been recently appointed as the Chief Equity Officer for the District of Columbia government and have been leading the newly established Office of Racial Equity, which sits within the Office of the City Administrator. So as Commissioner Moore mentioned, we'd like to share the mission, focus, and scope of the office and hopefully identify future opportunities to collaborate. I'd also like to thank my team, Carmen Berry, who is a Ward 5 resident, leads our community engagement efforts. We also have a policy and operations director, Dr. Tacarlo Leak, as well as 2 policy and data analysts. So I was appointed to this position in April. So over the past 6 months, we've been building our internal capacity, reaching out to external stakeholders and partners like yourselves, and excited to present some of our beginning initiatives with you all this evening. Many of you all may be familiar that the mayor established the Office of Racial Equity earlier this year to develop an infrastructure to ensure that policy decisions and programs are evaluated through a racial equity lens. And we also carry forward the implementation of the REACH Act, which passed by council late last year. One of the key provisions within the REACH Act is for the office to work with senior leadership, work with community and residents to establish a multi-year racial equity action plan. So that's one of our key deliverables for this fiscal year. Currently, we're engaging with listening sessions with residents to do some visioning exercises around what would a more racially equitable DC look like to inform the development of this plan, as well as our racial equity priorities for the district. And here's our vision statement. So we envision a District of Columbia where everyone can thrive with a sense of agency and purpose, and where race will no longer predict opportunities, outcomes, or the distribution of resources. And please let me know if I need to slow down at any point. So we understand that the Office of Racial Equity that sits within the City Administrator's office is only one small part of the racial equity ecosystem in DC. We also want to acknowledge the great racial justice work that is happening in Ward 5 and all of the racial equity ambassadors who are here on this call, as well as the Ward 5 commissioners. In that vein, we also have a council counterpart. So we meet regularly with Dr. McClure in the Council Office of Racial Equity, even though the scope of our work is different. So the Council Office, as you all know, is tasked with reviewing legislation that comes out of Council using a racial equity impact analysis. And on the executive side, to where I am, we are working across government operations. So most recently, you may know that agencies are in the process of submitting their FY23 budget submissions, even though we're just at the beginning of fiscal year 22. And this is the first year that agencies will explicitly be asked to talk about how they're budgeting for racial equity, what are their racial equity priorities, have they engaged stakeholders and communities, which we heard with a theme in the previous presentation. And we've been working actively with agencies to respond to that community need. And I'll share more about that on an upcoming slide. And we also know that the work that we do in government is necessary but not sufficient. So we are hoping to continue to listen to you, our residents and neighbors, through meaningful input, as well as working internally. So we stood up an interagency committee on racial equity, which includes folks from across the government to share best practices and to be our ambassadors across government. We're also working with the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments to stand up a 9-member Racial Equity Advisory Board. We hope to have some announcements on those members shortly. And then a very exciting initiative is that we are working with 12 agencies, and we're calling those agencies our Racial Equity Pilot Cohort. So includes agencies and departments such as the Metropolitan Police Department, Department of Energy and Environment, the Deputy Mayor's Office of Education, the Office of Planning, and a few other agencies who have volunteered to do an internal assessment of their policies and practices. And they will be the first agencies to develop department-specific racial equity action plans. So my office is working collaboratively to develop a district-wide plan, and we're using a phased approach to work with targeted agencies to develop their department-specific plans. So how do we define racial equity? And I wanted to share this because, again, that theme of being of meaningfully involving community and not just going in and the importance of going back and sharing how those inputs are incorporated and also involving community in the evaluation process. That's a key feature of how we're approaching racial equity. We see meaningful community engagement and racial equity as going hand in hand. And as a process, it means those most impacted by structural racism, those who have most been harmed, being involved in the development, design, and evaluation of policies and programs that impact their lives. And as an outcome, similar to our vision statement, we'll know that we achieve racial equity when one's race or ethnicity no longer predicts opportunities, outcomes, or the distribution of resources, particularly for Black, Indigenous, and people of color residents. So how are we going to know if our work is effective? So this is our theory of change. I won't read this all, but I wanted to highlight that we're really in the normalizing phase. We know that racial equity has become a buzzword, and we're unpacking what that is and what it isn't, that we are disrupting norms that are harmful, and standardizing and working on a shared vocabulary within district government about what racial equity means for themselves, their work, and their respective agencies. And we're also working on projects to measure our progress over time. So we will be setting metrics over the course of this fiscal year. And you'll see on the bottom, we see racial equity training as foundational to this work. So we have launched a racial equity training series for government staff. In previous conversations with ANC commissioners, there was a request to think through what partnership or collaboration on racial equity training for ANC commissioners and commissioner chairs would look like. We're definitely open to that and identifying other opportunities to partner. Given what was spoken about in the previous conversation, I actually added the slide in at the last minute. about one of the tools that we are working on. So Carmen Berry, who's a Ward 5 resident who is leading our community engagement work, we have recently drafted what we're calling a resource guide on meaningful community engagement. And we have not shared this with district government staff at this time, because we wanted to reach into community and survey residents on what they would like to see. So we held a listening session with Empower DC, the DC Initiative on Racial Equity, as well as other selected community stakeholders. And this guide aims to be a tool to support agencies around meaningful community engagement. What are some principles? For example, understanding the impact of historical and racial trauma. Is engagement ongoing, or is it at one point in time? Being transparent about the goals. So the overall purpose is to guide district agencies on what meaningful community engagement should look like and ways to engage district residents who have been typically been excluded from the planning process. So we'd be happy to share the finalized version of that guide once it's developed. So to wrap up, I wanted just to briefly share again our mission and reiterate that we are open to opportunities to partner and to listen more from all of you. We see our work in collaboration with district leadership and agencies, where we provide them leadership guidance and technical assistance. And we also know that there are existing best practices to see through the mayor's vision of achieving racial equity. So we also work to promote strategic alignment and coordinate the district's efforts towards achieving racial equity. And then lastly, why we are here today is to further strengthen our community partnerships with racial and social justice organizations. So with that, I will pass it back to Commissioner Moore.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to remind everyone to please put your questions on this topic only in the Q&A. We will have an open community section, but if you'll put your questions on this topic in the Q&A, we'll go to commissioners first, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And then I'm going to drop a link here for everyone, because we've got a lot of back and forth on managing your Zoom views. So we have been, just because there's been such a difficulty managing the spotlight when people are, sharing their screen, but you as participants can change your view to gallery view and then follow whichever speaker you choose. It's just a challenge for us to change it back and forth, because the different ASL interpreters switch back and forth as well. So we'll start with Commissioner Rhodes, and then we'll move to, if there's another commissioner, another question from the commission, and then community questions. So Commissioner Rhodes, go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Hewitt. The first question I have is, what agencies are your target agencies? I heard you mention it earlier, but I didn't catch it. But are all the district agencies target agencies, or just specific ones? And also, have it ever been implemented before? Does it work? We know that a lot of the district agencies has a culture that's toxic, and it just trickled down like a domino effect, which is deep within, so they can't be trained to be different than who they are. So how do we know that what you're proposing is going to work, especially for upper management? Because it starts with upper management and then it trickles down into the employees. How do we know that using this racial equity lens and meaningful community engagement, and just trying to get managers and supervisors and all these people to have a different mind frame when they're dealing with the public, dealing with the workers, dealing with anybody? How do we know that's going to work?
Thank you, Commissioner Rhodes, and thank you for all of your advocacy over the years. So to answer your first question, and Carmen Berry is going to put the names of the agencies that I may forget in the chat. So for this year, we put out a call for agencies to volunteer to be the 12 agencies that we work with more closely to look at their internal practices and develop action plans. So I'm going to try to name all of them, but I may miss them because I don't have the list in front of me. But From the education cluster, and looks like Carmen is putting it in the chat now, we're working with the Deputy Mayor's Office of Education, the public libraries, and Parks and Recreation. From Health and Human Services, we're working with the Department of Disability Services. From the Planning and Economic Development cluster, we're working with the Office of Planning, and I may be missing one other agency. Yes, the Department of Small and Local Business Development. And then our public safety and justice agencies are the most clusters that are represented. And I'm happy to send this as a list as well. So we're working with the Metropolitan Police Department, Fire and EMS, the Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services, as well as Homeland Security and Emergency Management. So hopefully I captured all 12. To your second question about how do we measure success, so going back to our theory of change, we are in the first phase of really socializing and providing education and training to government staff about what racial equity is and isn't. We have developed some metrics. So one of the things that we're measuring are the percent of agency staff who go through racial equity training. We're measuring that. We're also measuring how many agencies are using the tools that we create. So those are a couple of ways, but we're also in the planning phase of coming up with more outcome-oriented metrics. So that will be a part of the district-wide action plan that is still in development.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, let's move to public questions. Let's see. Josh has a question. The definition of racial equity focuses squarely on whether a person is a Black person or a person of color. It leads me to wonder how this initiative will engage with and take into consideration the intersectional identities of people who would benefit from racial equity work, i.e., people with disabilities who are also Black or people of color, LGBTQI, et cetera. Might you have any additional information to share on that? So basically a question on intersectionality.
Yes, excellent question. And one of my favorite topics. For the sake of time, I didn't go into all of our framework, which includes our guiding principles, one of which is that we must have an intersectional lens. And in our racial equity training, we talk about that term, which was coined by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, and talk about how race is a social construction, but we're also whole people, and that we have to look at those intersectional identities. So that's definitely a focus, and we're building out our relationships with some of the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs office that target specific constituencies. So I appreciate that question and happy to follow up and discuss it with you further.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. And then so this is a logistics question, but I'll just refer you to Zoom's website on saving the meeting transcripts because it's different on every device. But then for Dr. Hewitt, Monarabi asks, curious to know how the private sector can be looped into these racial equity goals, i.e. banking, hiring, housing, education, et cetera. Seem like it's mostly centered around DC government activity. Thank you.
That's a great question, and we are focusing intentionally right now on government operations to meet the provisions of what is in the REACH Act. At the same time, we know that government's role in promoting racial equity is necessary but not sufficient. So happy to follow up with you later and welcome any ideas that you have that we can put on our agenda later on this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you for that. And then Patrice Lancaster asks, do you address the economic chasm between Blacks and whites with economic solutions?
Well, I know Mr. Grant was on earlier and alluded to the racial wealth gap. That's definitely top of mind when we think about racial inequities. And we see economic and financial wealth as being a key component of our plan and a metric that we track. Again, we've been in development and up and running for 6 months, so I can't speak specifically on solutions, but it's definitely something top of mind.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. I think we all really appreciate you taking the time out to just kind of introduce the work that your office is doing. And we look forward to hearing and seeing more from you all. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward in our agenda for the evening. We'll now have an update from Hadiya Jordan on the Northeast Boundary Tunnel project. That's been upgoing for quite some time. So Ms. Jordan, if you're with us and you could go ahead and give an update. Let's see, I'm not seeing you here. So if you are in the participants section, rather than the panelist section, if you could use the raise hand feature so that we can find you a little bit more easily. Okay, and Ms. Jordan, I'm still not seeing you. I do see you, okay. I'm gonna change your role to a panelist so you should be able to share with us. Let's all give Ms. Jordan just a moment. Okay. And Ms. Jordan, you just have to accept the invitation to become a panelist. It says you have declined. I'll give you just a moment here. And you should be able to mute or unmute. I can see you there. Okay. All right, and you should be able to speak whenever you're ready. Okay, it seems that we're having some technical difficulties here with Ms. Jordan, so we're just gonna go ahead and move forward in the agenda. Also from DC Water, we have Emmanuel Briggs on this evening. So if you're here to give a DC Water lead pipe replacement project update, if you could go ahead and raise your hand.
Hi, actually, John Deignan with DC Water. I'm gonna start the presentation off.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Screen. Right. Confirming that everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So hi, thanks for having me. My name is John Deignan. I'm with DC Water's Department of Water Quality and Technology. Tonight I'm going to be sharing about our lead-free DC program, and I will make sure that we do well on time. Commissioners, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just interrupt me, or if there's any pertinent Q&A that pops up, I'll be focused on the slides, so I'll leave it to you to moderate that. So I want to start everybody on the phone who hasn't seen the screen, or those who are. I want you to write down these two contact points. I'll echo them at the end of the presentation, but it's lead@dcwater.com. That's LEAD at dcwater.com. And then our lead hotline is 202-787-4044. That's 202-787-4044. If you have any questions about this presentation or about lead service lines and lead pipes in general, or lead and water in general, please don't hesitate to shoot us an email or give us a phone call, and we can walk you through all the resources I present today. Also, if you are on one of these three blocks, it's the 1200 block of 17th Street Northeast, the 1400 block of Morse Street Northeast, or the 700 block of 19th Street Northeast. It's really important that you engage with us tonight or continue to respond to our letters and our direct door-to-door outreach that we're going to do. but we will be doing construction on your block this next year, this next fiscal year that's already started. And it's your opportunity to receive a free lead pipe replacement. Free as in funded by Mayor Bowser and the district, so we appreciate that. So make sure you are all ears, and we'll make a copy of this presentation available to you afterwards. So what is lead-free DC? It's DC Water's initiative to eliminate all lead service lines by 2030. It's a huge capital project, and it's going to take a lot of partnerships, a lot of funding. I'm sure the news with the infrastructure bill, it's very exciting. But a big component of this is going to be homeowner participation and making sure that homeowners sign any agreements that we provide so that we can give that free private side lead replacement. We're not going to be able to meet our goal unless we get our residents on board. So we want to make sure that we're getting the word out there. There's about 28,000 lead service lines that we estimate across the district. And what are lead service lines, you may ask? So there's a misconception about where lead is in water. And I want to clear that up first. So the water mains in the street that are distributing water across the city from our treatment plant, those are not made of lead. So there's no lead that's coursing through our water system. Those are made of cast iron, and they get old and we do replace them, but those are not made of lead. The most significant source of lead, that first point, is this service line that connects, and you can see the arrow, that connects individual properties to the water main. And there's two components to that. There's the portion in public space, that's DC Water's responsibility. And then there's the portion on private property, which is the homeowner's responsibility. Homeowner owns the entire service line, but DC Water maintains that portion in public space. Now, why is that important distinction? Because with the new law that we passed with mayoral support and the council support in 2019, it freed up lead assistance funding to help fund service line replacements that historically the homeowner would have to pay for the private side. And so to meet our 2030 goal, we are ramping up capital projects. And this year, I was just there last week, we just started construction on our first of these projects that are going to tackle lead service lines. You can see on this map, anywhere there's a gray dot, that's a lead service line. We are going to systematically go across the city to replace lead lines. And during these capital projects, it's free for homeowners as long as they sign up, as long as they return a signed agreement so that we can do work on private property. So again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of submitting those signed agreements. I'll return to the blocks that we're going to be on in a couple of slides, but it's important that the way that we've modeled and prioritized these block by block projects throughout the city was with this model based on the area deprivation index and the population density of vulnerable populations, children who are most affected by lead exposure. So we built this model based on that health equity data and that and water quality data. And that's how we planned our first year of block by block projects. So now we're back to those 3 blocks in ANC 5D. So we have sent out notifications, and I should preface this, when we get a specific construction date for those blocks, we are going to do a slew of targeted direct outreach. We'll let the ANC commissioners know. We'll likely come back to the ANC, and you can ensure your neighbors who are on these blocks attend, so we can give a specific Q&A about what construction entails, what's going to be dug up in their yard, what the cost is, and it's free for homeowners. We've already sent out a first round of notification, and we're going to start doing block by block outreach where we're door knocking. We'll send out robocalls on the information we have, the phone numbers we have on file beforehand to let you know that we're coming to the block. We'll be posting signs in the public space with a QR code that will lead you to the agreement and with information about the project. But this next couple of months, we're going to be ramping up our communication efforts as construction nears. I want to say at this point, we've out of the 54 properties that are on these 3 blocks, we've received 8 signed agreements back. So that's good. We're going to try to bump that up to 100% because this is the opportunity when we're on the street this year to receive the free replacement. So what about other residents? if they have service lines, or what their service line material is. You can check in your home, and again, email lead@dcwater.com. We can walk you through step by step how to do this. But there's various material types that you'll see on in these service lines. We have lead, we have galvanized iron, we have brass, and we replace them all with copper. Copper is what you want. So if you find you have copper, that's good. We house all of this information on our website on a map. You can type in your address and it will pop up what our records are for your service line. Some of these records date back to when the house was first developed. So they're very old, and these historic records aren't always accurate. So part of what our job is we are going to help identify those service lines with free water testing, visual identification, like pipe identification guide I spoke to earlier. But again, call us 202-787-4044 or email us, and we will help you walk you through that process. So homeowners that have a lead line that aren't on those 3 blocks this coming year, we still have 2 customer initiated programs you can go into. We'll point you in the right direction for what those entail, but you enroll. One of them is district assisted. The other one is facilitated solely by DC Water. We connect you with the proper contractors who give you a price quote for the work, and they will sign you and they will conduct that replacement on your property. Again, I know it's a lot of information, so I will emphasize, email us at lead@dcwater.com or call us at 202-787-4044. This is especially important if you are a tenant and not the property owner. The homeowner has to sign up for these for this replacement. So please reach out to your landlord. We are reaching out to the records we have on file. We'll be doing door-to-door outreach again, especially if you live on these 3 blocks. That's the 1200 block of 17th Street Northeast, the 1400 block of Morse Street Northeast, and the 700 block of 19th Street Northeast. Please reach out to us, but we will be engaging much more with you in the past couple of months. And we'll give you a heads up ahead of time so you know we're coming. We'll always have our DC Water identification, either gear or a hard hat, and we'll leave a card and leave our information if you're not home. So I think with that, again, here's the number. That is all I have. I can answer questions.
Okay, thank you. So just a reminder for everyone, if you're a member of the audience, if you'll please put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll go to commissioners first for any questions from commissioners, questions or comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any commissioners. So let's jump into the Q&A. Joanna Thurston asks, how do we engage?
So if you're on one of those planned blocks, we will be doing a lot of proactive engagement and coming to you. Otherwise, we really recommend you view or look up your service line material type online. Again, call us 202-787-4044 or lead@dcwater.com. Those are our dedicated resources and pathways to talk about lead, and we will walk you through the steps.
Okay, thank you. And so I see a question from our interpreters. The request should have been until 10 p.m. But we'll try to wrap up as soon as we can, and we'll leave live transcripts for everyone. So just a housekeeping note. Next question, how can residents obtain the water presentation? So Mr. Deignan, can you share that presentation with us, and then we'll post it to ANC 5D's website?
Yes, ma'am, we will. And we can post it online as well.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. All right, that's all. So I think next up, we can go back to the Northeast Boundary Tunnel project update. And Ms. Jordan is with us, so I'm going to try to elevate Ms. Jordan. I think we've gotten the technical issues sorted out here. So give us just a moment. Okay. All right, and then Ms. Jordan, you have the ability to get started. I do see where you're rejoining us as a panelist. If you could just speak and let me know that you're here.
I am here.
Okay, all right, Ms. Jordan, if you want to go ahead and give your update, if you need to share your screen, just let us know.
Yes, I would like to share my screen, and I will do that now. So thank you. Thank you so much for working with me. I'm glad I was able to sort the problem. And I would like to say thank you to Commissioner Rhodes and Commissioner Salcida Guzman, who have worked with me on the Northeast Boundary Tunnel outreach in their communities. And so I appreciate the time on your agenda today. So I will just give a brief overview of our project, and I'll paste my contact information into the Q&A chat so that everyone can, know how to reach me and go to the website to learn more about the project. So this project, the Northeast Boundary Tunnel, is a DC Water Clean Rivers project. And we are there because what we want to do is solve problems in DC that concern combined sewer overflows to our DC waterways, which include the Anacostia River, the Rock Creek, and the Potomac River. And as well, we want to reduce chronic flooding that occur in neighborhoods such as on Mount Olivet Road, as you may have experienced last year when we had big rain in September that caused flooding in different parts of the city. So the Clean Rivers Project, with the goal in mind of cleaning our waterways that way and reducing chronic flooding, has two main methods that they are using to address this. One is through green infrastructure, and the other is by building a series of tunnels, which would capture combined sewer overflows when we have a large rain event, and capture that and direct that flow to the Blue Plains wastewater treatment facility, which would then clean that captured flow before releasing it into the Potomac River. And so the Clean Rivers Project has a number of tunnels. The main two are the Anacostia River Tunnel here and the Potomac River Tunnel, which we have not yet begun construction on. The Anacostia River Tunnel, there is a portion of that, which is the purple line, that is in operation already since 2018 in the First Street Tunnel. The Northeast Boundary Tunnel, once this line is in operation, it will complete the Anacostia River Tunnel. And then we'll begin work on the Potomac River Tunnel in 2023, and that will go into service in 2030. It's a large project, and you can see by our presence on Mount Olivet Road that it takes time to build the facilities for that tunnel system. But with the Anacostia River Tunnel already in operation, we've already captured 12.1 billion gallons of combined sewer overflow and 7,500 tons of trash, debris, and other solids, which would have otherwise entered into the Anacostia River. And so this slide here shows where there is chronic flooding in the Northeast and parts of the Northwest area that the Northeast Boundary Tunnel will address. And this little red diamond, this little yellow diamond here is Mount Olivet Road. And you experienced chronic flooding again last year. And this is the intersection of Montello Avenue and Mount Olivet Road. And this is the type of flooding that the tunnel will be able to help reduce. This image here, I know it's small, but this is at the Baptist Church right there on Capitol Avenue, flooding that goes right up into their parking lot and into their front doors. So there are other areas along Rhode Island Avenue that we are also trying to reduce chronic flooding, and that's at the Rhode Island Metro Station and also in Bloomingdale. And so with this page, we see the tunnel alignment for Northeast Boundary Tunnel. It's a 5-mile long tunnel, and the, excuse me, I'm capturing the echo here. The 5-mile long tunnel is designed to reach those areas where there is chronic flooding. It starts just south of the RFK Stadium. It makes its way up to Mount Olivet Road, crosses over and reaches Rhode Island Avenue and ends at R Street Northwest. And so I know you're trying to figure out, well, how do we make this work? What is the combined sewer overflow? So parts of the city, about a third of the city has a combined sewer system, and that includes the area in which you live. And in that combined sewer area, the sewer captures both the flow that comes from our buildings, our homes, the sewage that comes from our homes, and from the storm drains in one pipe. And when you have a large rain, that system is overwhelmed. And so it is designed to have an outflow into the river. That is its design. During a normal day, that sewage is delivered to the Blue Plains wastewater treatment facility where it's treated. And so what we're constructing is a diversion facility that will connect from the existing sewer system and divert that flow through its different components of the facility down to and relay it to the tunnel. And that tunnel will relay it to Blue Plains. And so at Mount Olivet Road, one of the many construction sites that we have in the city along that tunnel alignment, there are actually 2 construction sites. And so this blue line here is the tunnel, which we completed the construction of this portion earlier this summer. So we finished constructing the tunnel, but we're still constructing the diversion facilities to connect to it. And so there's a portion on the DPW construction, on the DPW lot, and this is Commissioner Boozman's area right here. His residents live right across the street from our site, and we will connect directly to the tunnel. And this is the site down at Capitol Avenue. It's at this location that we connect to the existing sewer system, which is in green. So this green line here and here and here will all be connected through one pipe to the diversion facility. We just completed this diversion sewer here that connects the DPW lot to the Capitol Avenue lot. We did this work underground, and we used the mini tunnel boring machine to do this. And these 2 systems will capture that flow from this area and relay it to the tunnel. And we started this work in April 2019, and will be finished in fall of 2022. Once we finish the construction at these 2 areas, we'll restore the sites where we were located. And you know, you've run into our traffic pattern changes because we've had to bump out into the street to build these facilities. And so we are reduced to 1 lane in each direction on Mount Olivet Road, and in this area here near Capitol Avenue as well. We've made a few adjustments in the roadway to help with pedestrian safety as they cross the street here. We have a detour which allows people to enter the gate here at the park and walk around the area and use the paths that we have. We had to move some bus stops, relocate them to different areas, just up a few feet from here to here. That's so that the buses can have a better place at the navigating our traffic pattern merge areas to pick up residents safely. And we have detours as well for pedestrians to navigate away from the construction area and not have to walk out into the street here. And so we have a responsive outreach team where we listen to the concerns and answer the questions from residents about our project and any impacts that it has. We prepare newsletters that we distribute via email, and we do door-to-door hangers that we leave on doorways, printed copies as well. We have a 24/7 hotline, and we have a dedicated webpage, dcwater.com/NEBT from the DC Water website, which talks more about the project. And so if you would like to receive email updates about our project and about construction schedule and changes in the Mount Olivet Road area, please send us an email to dccleanrivers@dcwater.com. I will add you to our list and you can receive our updates. I'll copy and paste that information, as I said again, into your chat.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Jordan. We really appreciate the presentation. Very informative. So as usual, we'll start out with questions from commissioners, if there are any, and then move to questions from the public.
Just real quick, Hadiya. Hey,
Yes.
Hadiya. This is Commissioner Rhodes. I wanted to ask about the Anacostia River.
Yes.
And will this tunnel project, will that help with the cleaning of the river, or it takes more than what this project is doing to clean the river?
This is definitely a big part of helping to clean the Anacostia River because we have a number of outflows to the Anacostia River, and this reduces the number of those outflows so that most of the overflow will go to the Blue Plains wastewater treatment through the tunnel system when we have a big rain. And so since 2018, as I had mentioned before, the Anacostia River tunnel system that's in operation has captured trash and overflow that would have entered into the Anacostia River. Still work needs to be done with other organizations and entities to help keep our river clean and make it swimmable and fishable. But this is a big part of helping to reach that goal.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, while the community is gathering their thoughts. Okay, so I don't see anything from commissioners or the community. Thank you so much, Ms. Jordan. Really appreciate your informative presentation.
Thank you. I wish everyone a good evening.
All right. So next up on our agenda, voting actions. First up from Commissioner Cobb, we have a letter supporting a protest of Brodrick's liquor license. So we'll let Commissioner Cobb explain what's going on there. But while he's doing that, if you are here from Brodrick's Liquor, if you'll please use the raise hand feature to let us know that you are in the audience. So go ahead, Commissioner Cobb.
Thanks, Commissioner. Brodrick's supermarket at the corner of Bladensburg and Levis, their annual liquor license is up for renewal. I know on that corner we've had concerns, and I've heard concerns with littering and drug use and blocking traffic on the road and in the sidewalk. And the liquor store there is a factor. And so with our protest, this will give us an opportunity to just bring Brodrick to the table and sit down with them and see if we can work out a settlement agreement that works for everyone. One thing that's different this year that I want to highlight is that they're requesting an upgrade from a Class B license to a Class A license, which means that instead of selling just wine and beer, they'll also be able to sell liquor. And I don't think that's going to help out with what's going on there. So I've written a letter to, which if passed, we'll submit to ABRA, which will get the ball rolling on the protest process to work out a settlement agreement.
Okay. All right. And then Abel M., I'm guessing you're here from Brodrick's to discuss some of the community issues that Commissioner Cobb just raised. And just for everyone's understanding, we are required to, by law, and just would do this anyway, let the store owner know when this issue is going to be a subject on the agenda, and they're welcome to attend. So Abel M., if you're here on behalf of Brodrick's, you have the ability to unmute yourself at this time. Okay, go ahead and speak. I see you're unmuted if you'll say something. Okay, let's try this. I'm gonna go ahead and change your role, and hopefully that will help and you'll be able to speak. So if you'll accept that change, then we should be able to hear from you. So please don't press decline. You have the ability to speak, so you don't need to keep raising your hand. You just need to unmute and speak. Okay, we're gonna give you a moment here. You just have to accept. When I'm sending you this invitation, just click accept. Don't keep declining. Okay, so I've sent this request a few times so that you can speak, and I've received 4 different declines at this point. I'm gonna try one last time. If you decline this time, we're gonna go ahead and move forward in the agenda. Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate you accepting. And you're able to unmute yourself and speak. Okay, I do see that you're unmuted. So if you want to just share with us, you can go ahead. And if not, I'll just move forward in the agenda. Okay, Commissioner Cobb, the floor is yours.
Hi, Abel. I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry we can't get the technology working right now, but you're always welcome to email me at 5d07@anc.dc.gov. And you can also check the website for my contact information.
Okay.
So with that, I move that we vote.
Well, wait, I'm gonna pause you just before we move forward here. I do hear noise coming from Abel's line. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So if you want to go ahead and speak now, now's your chance. If not, you can use the chat feature to make any comments. What I'm going to suggest is that we actually table this until the end of the voting actions to give you an additional opportunity to be able to participate. I do see that you're able to mute and unmute, but you're not saying anything. So just out of fairness, we're going to give you an extra moment here to at least be able to use the chat. And then we'll circle back on this one. Apologies to you, Commissioner Cobb, for tabling this item. But we'll circle back at the end of voting actions. I think that's a fair compromise here.
That sounds good.
Okay. So letter supporting AT&T cellular antenna proposal at Spingarn. Commissioner Blacknell, I know this is in your area. And so just a reminder for everyone that this was a proposal to add an additional antenna to some of the stadium lights on the sports field. So the floor is yours to give us a quick reminder, Mr. Triller. You have about 2 or 3 minutes to just remind us. And then Commissioner Blacknell, if you want to make a motion as to how we should move forward.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner Moore. My name is Doug Sampson. I'll be speaking on behalf of AT&T this evening. I'm AT&T's legal representative. Also on the call is Mr. Triller, who's involved in site acquisition and construction for AT&T, as well as Latera Harris, who is AT&T's external affairs. As a brief reminder, this is what we call a drop and swap. The plan is to replace an existing light pole at the athletic fields at Spingarn High School with a 8-foot taller pole that will have the lights at the same height with cellular antennas just above that, which will give us enhanced emergency and non-emergency services in the area. I want to remind everybody this is a FirstNet site. That is an exclusive contract between AT&T and the federal government to bring dedicated emergency broadband and wireless access to our first responders in the area. That is exclusively with AT&T, and that is one of the preeminent issues with this particular site. Is this is a targeted FirstNet area working with DC as an area we want to bring this service to the area. I just want to give a quick update since we spoke last month. There was a concern about community outreach that I believe a couple of commissioners raised. We have spoken with the principals at all 3 area schools that are in the area, Shauna Dix at Brown, Dr. Joshua Emmett at Phelps, and Kaiser Hussein, who does external affairs for Two Rivers. And so we've presented our project to all 3 schools, answered any questions or concerns that they may have. On the whole, the schools were very supportive of more emergency services and first responder services in the area. And one thing that they did bring up that we've committed to is making sure that any construction, if this is approved through zoning and permitting, that we will work with the schools to make sure that we are not interfering with arrival, dismissal, any special events, anything going on at the schools. We're going to work with all 3 schools to make sure that construction's at off-peak hours and at times that's convenient for the schools. We also do have a meeting set up next week with the Friends of Kingman Park Civic Association. I know they've come out with some concerns and questions, and so we have set up a meeting with them next Tuesday. And I just want to remind everybody that this will be before the Board of Zoning Adjustment on December 15th. For anybody with concerns, I am sending in the chat my personal contact information, email and phone number, as well as a link to the Board of Zoning Adjustment application. All of our materials that we've applied to the city with are there. Anybody in the public can view those, and feel free to please reach out to me with any questions or concerns. If anybody has any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer those right now, but community outreach is underway and ongoing, and we'll continue to do that up until the Board of Zoning Adjustment hearing.
Mr. Doug,
Yes.
I did not receive anything from you stating that you had talked to the principals at the school And when you presented yourself last month, I specifically said, when you contacted the principals at the school, could you send me a copy of the email and response? I did not receive that. I received the email that you are to meet. I have to correct you. It's not the Friends of Kingman Park. It's the Kingman Park Civic Association. You will be meeting with them on the 15th next week. You also will be meeting with the alumni, the original alumni of Spingarn. You'll be meeting with Stand for Spingarn. That's the younger alumni. And I just, I'm kind of upset because, you didn't do what we agreed that you would, to keep me updated of what's going on. That's my concern.
Okay, well, I would say my apologies that I can forward you the correspondence we've had with the principals. I'd be happy to do that. I think you were the one who actually gave us the contact information, but that is my fault for not following up. And
yes, it did.
Yep.
Yes,
So we have reached out and talked with them. We'll be happy to forward that correspondence or get you in touch with the principals or get everybody on one email chain to discuss. We'd be happy to do that before the Board of Zoning Adjustment coming up. And you are correct. We do have several community outreach initiatives next week as well. So, our goal between now and December 15th and even after that is to try to be as open and transparent with the community as possible. And if any commissioner, including yourself, has additional outreach you would like us to do, we are certainly happy to do that.
Okay, your hearing is the 15th of December. I'm asking the commission, can we roundtable this until after they meet with Kingman Park, the original alumni of Spingarn, and Stand for Spingarn alumni, so we can vote fairly and get the output of all the principals and the organizations that are dealing with Spingarn in that field?
I would, so I think what Commissioner Blacknell is doing is making a motion here, and I second it.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have said
that's okay.
Making a motion, but it's
That's okay.
saying that's a round table. We may have to have a special meeting, but I would like to get the output for everybody that's involved with that field.
Okay. Okay. So I second your motion, and we can await that additional feedback. And just as a reminder, I mean, we did kind of lay that out at the last meeting that we were looking for some feedback and follow up with the school. I mean, basically, we're in a position where, we don't want to say we approve permission to do something on someone else's property that they themselves don't approve. So let's go ahead and get that feedback from the school. So that we make sure that everyone is on the same page. So we'll table this. This is not ready for a vote this month. We'll table this until next month. We do have all the documentation we need to move forward one way or the other. So that will go into the IZIS system overnight for that December 14th meeting if need be.
It's December the 15th. So we still got
their deadline is the
right?
15th. Yeah, and our meeting is the 14th.
Our meeting is what?
The 14th.
Oh, okay.
So it would have to go in the system overnight, but that's doable. It wouldn't be the first time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, let's have the vote because we might be overruled. So all in favor of tabling for next month, and that would be December 14th with an overnight input to IZIS before the December 15th hearing. So all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
I oppose.
Commissioner Hoffman opposes?
Yes.
Was that you? Okay.
Yeah.
And any abstentions? Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll
Chair
table
Moore,
until.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Are the schools not parties in the zoning hearing that would be happening on the 15th, since it's their property?
I mean, they're definitely parties. I don't know if they signed up for party status. I know that they're eligible, but I do know that you also have to sign up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, with the change in leadership at the school, who got what notification when. So I think that was why we had that background concern at the last month's meeting about making sure to reach out to the school principal, because I know there were some recent personnel changes, and make sure that the right person got the actual notice to even be able to register for party status. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioners Black. Go ahead.
It's Latara Harris with AT&T. I just want to make sure, knowing that we're shooting for this December 14th one-day turnaround, that we have exactly what it is. And I'm sorry, I wasn't on the last meeting, completely understand your position, and there were certain voices that you wanted to hear from. So I just wanted to make sure that that was the only outstanding issue for this body, because if not, we want to make sure that those things are addressed as well. Yeah. Was it just the feedback from those community leaders?
So really for me, I'll just speak for myself. It was the feedback from those community leaders. I mean, especially the principals for me, because, that's a property that, that's theirs. And so we want to make sure that if, we're going to move forward on something, that we've at least heard from them. And that they have received appropriate notice, all of the above. But Commissioner Blacknell, I know, and our videos are online of previous meetings, so that's also a resource on YouTube, ANC Space 5D, and you can see some of the additional questions that I believe Commissioner Blacknell raised previously. But I think the main one for us at this point is just making sure that the principals are informed and on board.
And I think that we have addressed those issues with the principals, but I think the piece we're missing is the principals, the communication between the principals and us and you. So we'll reach out tomorrow and figure out exactly what you need, what would help the commission, and what we can get from the principals to discuss that, and then also about the community outreach next week. So we appreciate your time.
Okay.
And we will keep you posted this time. So we apologize, but we will definitely do that. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
And then next up, we have another BZA case number 20568 at 1801 Maryland Avenue Northeast. And I think Sam Swiller is here to represent that project.
Hi, Commissioner Moore. This is Jared Kahn. I'll get us started off, and then
go for it.
Over to our design team. So we won't take up too much time, but thank you for getting us back on the agenda. So we'll give a brief overview of our project that we presented to everyone last time. So I'm Jared Kahn, I'm developer for 1801, 1805 with my business partner, Sam Swiller. Our architect and design team is led by Square 134, Ron Schneck and Sabrina Nagel, who are also here. And we are pursuing relief in the form of a special exception that we have applied to the Board of Zoning and Adjustment, essentially to shift 1801 as a split zoned lot, and to just shift that using the special exception that's already in the zoning code to provide a better project and an easier design task ahead of us, essentially. And so with that, it's a 30-unit project. It's multi-unit. It's predominantly 2 bedrooms with as well as 1 bedrooms, and slightly larger units than what you typically see for new construction. So with that, I'll hand it over to our design team, who can give you some more details.
Hi again, Sabrina Nagel from Square 134 Architects, architectural designer. And yes, Ron Schneck, principal, is also here. So I'm just going to go through a few of the main points that we went through in October. I'll try to keep it a little bit quick. So once again, we have the 2 lots on Maryland Avenue. So this is just to situate yourself for the site. As Jared said, we're going to BZA for special exception to shift the zoning boundary line up to the actual property line between the 2 lots so that we could treat the entirety of lot 36 as an MU7 zone. Again, we're providing 30 condo units with 1 and 2 bedrooms. As I've mentioned previously, the reason that this half of the building is taller is because that's the MU7 zone. And another main point was that we wanted to provide as much private outdoor space as possible, as you could see both on the bay and throughout the facades of the project. Due to the fact that we would have to have at-risk windows on these facades, we do provide this light well to get natural light into those units. It's just the rear facade with another kind of floating projection and some balconies, additional balconies. The views up and down Maryland Avenue, where you could see that material and patterning wrapping the corner from the north to the west facade. Here, where we're providing 3 parking spaces and a pretty substantial rooftop amenity space, as well as additional outdoor space on either side of the 1805 penthouse. Typical floor, we do have 3 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. Moving up quickly. And we did split the 1805 penthouse into 2 units. And the 3 units on 1801 do have private rooftop access. So then you can also see where we're putting the rooftop mechanical equipment on 1805 penthouse. That is a very quick summary of some of those main points. Please let me know if you want me to elaborate on anything, but I'll hand it back over to Commissioner Moore.
Okay, thank you. And this, I just want to remind folks, this is a property that is a split zone property. What that means for us is that we're not reviewing every single aspect of the project as an ANC commission. What we're reviewing is just what's covered by their request, which is that, you know, the single side of the property, there's several, that is a split zone, that be consolidated into one single zone. So that's the only aspect of the project that we are voting on as a commission, even though they've shared with us, you know, what all they're planning to do at the site. We're not voting on any other aspect of the project. So I just want to give that reminder to folks as we're taking a look at this. So with that said, I move to support the request for the special exception for the split zoning of that property at 1801 Maryland Avenue. If I could please get a second.
Second.
Okay, second from Commissioner Sauceda Guzman. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, and then just a reminder for folks, Commissioner Cobb has to abstain from these votes for work reasons. So, you know, just so we understand what's going on. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate that refresher on your project. And I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to revisit our liquor license discussion for Brodrick's. We do have the owner on, and he was able to share in the chat. He's still able to unmute and speak if he would like to. But I do see that he has left some comments for us in the chat. And then just out of fairness for everyone who's following along on YouTube or social media, I'm just going to read out, what Mr. McConnon wrote in the chat. My name is Abel McConnon. I'm the owner of Brodrick Supermarket. I run this business since 2017 without any problems. Before this, I used to run another store with my partners in Southeast DC, King Convenience Store, 1535 U Street Southeast. The store is still in business. I understand your concern. I tried my best to clean up outside and not let anyone stand in front of the store. Put my no standing sign on all the corners of the store. I did a lot of renovations and cleanup inside the store too. As always, I'm ready to work with the community and our commissioners. So that's Mr. McConnon's statement on the issues that Commissioner Cobb described. So Commissioner Cobb, the floor is yours in response to that. And then before we go back to Commissioner Cobb, just a reminder that ABRA protests result in one of two ways, which is that you come to an agreement with the store that they've heard your concerns, you put an agreement in writing on how you want to move forward to address those concerns. Or if it's just not possible to reach an agreement, then it would go to a full-on protest hearing, and the ABRA board would make a decision as to how best to move things forward, whether it is, making certain requirements of the store to maintain their license, or saying, hey, these issues are so severe that the license just needs to be revoked. So that's just a refresher for everyone who might not be familiar with that process. So now the floor is yours, Commissioner Cobb.
Sure. Thanks. And thank you, Abel, again for offering your input. I'm very glad to hear that you're willing to work with the ANC, and I look forward to working with you. I do want to echo what Commissioner Moore said, that this letter is not about opposing the store. It's really just the legal mechanism that the ANC uses to get the ball rolling and to participate in the process. So that's really what this is. And my hope is that we can get an agreement worked out. And just right now, someone in the chat is asking what the store's address is, or name and address. It is Brodrick Supermarket. That is at
and I just looked it up, 1064 Bladensburg Road.
Yeah, that's at the corner of Bladensburg and Levis. So I guess any of the commissioners have questions? No? Okay.
I just want to know, why would they want to serve liquor when it's a liquor store 2 doors down?
Yeah, that's part of what I'm wondering as well.
Yeah, and Mr. McConnell, if you want to type in the chat, you're welcome to do that in response to Commissioner Rhodes' question. One of the issues at hand is that they would like to go from a Class B grocery license to serve beer and wine to now become a liquor store serving spirits. Or actually selling spirits for consumption, preferably off premises. Okay. And I don't see a comment from Mr. McConnon. Okay, thank you for your question, Mr. McConnon says. So I think he's working on typing a response here.
I can also add that Class B is the least common license issued by ABRA in the district. It's very uncommon to have a grocery license. Actually, most of the people that have a Class B are the Whole Foods, Giant, Safeway type of establishments, typically. And also the fees are very similar to a Class A. So it costs you the same amount of money, but you can sell more products. So it seems to make a lot more sense for most people.
Okay, and Mr. McConnell says the liquor store next to my store closed 2 months ago.
And that is Stanton Liquor, which closed at the end of September because they couldn't get their lease renewed.
Okay. So any additional questions from any of the commissioners? And I do see a comment here, just because I'm following the chat, since that's how we're communicating, is that Rose's, from a community member, Rose's Liquor is also very close to this location. Okay. All right, Commissioner Cobb, do you have anything else to share, or do you want to go ahead and make a motion?
I propose that we go ahead and vote to send the protest letter to Abra. So all those in favor?
Or so let me just make a friendly amendment to the motion. So I would maybe change the language to say I move to protest the liquor license for Brodrick's, and that you be made the ANC's representative on that protest, Commissioner Cobb.
Thank you. That makes sense. I move that we vote to protest Brodrick's liquor license, and that I be made the representative for the ANC. All those in favor?
Aye.
Or I second.
Oh.
I second.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So seconded by me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. Okay, and now we're at the much awaited community feedback and questions section. Azra Ahmad, I hope I'm not butchering your name, Azra Ahmad. Are there plans to open an access point to the Arboretum at the end of Maryland and M Street Northeast? It is in our backyard, but we do not have any easy access point. The answer is yes. The answer is that has been an ongoing question in our community for years and years. The commission voted, I want to say, maybe 2017 or 2018, to support moving forward with that request. And now we're at a point where pretty much everyone has adopted that that's going to be the best way to move forward, but it's just a question of funding. It was included in the master plan for the Arboretum, which is fantastic news. And our Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton has been very supportive and is working with them at the USDA, actually, not the Park Service, to make sure that appropriate funding is in place for them to move forward with those plans. So thank you for that question. And then Patrice Lancaster, I believe this was about the liquor license, but if it is a grocery store, it should be able to compete with other grocery stores. So we take your point. Okay, if there are any other questions from the community on any variety of topics, now's your chance to go ahead and type that in the Q&A. Also, I'm going to take a look at the participants list. If you want to raise your hand to be able to ask a question, you can do that as well. I'm not seeing anything there. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move forward to commission reports. Let's go in order. So we'll start with you, Commissioner Rose, for 5D01.
Is for the Ivy City We do community cleanup every second Saturday of the month, meeting at Lewis Crow Park. If you want to clean up, come to the park at by 10:30, and we'll pass out gloves and bags. If you don't want to do that, just please clean up in front of where you live, and that can help out a lot because saving our next generation, they normally come out every day, but they haven't been lately. So especially after trash day, if you can clean up in front of your house, that'd be great. The park has been cleaned up a couple of days ago. We've been having some visits from district agencies, and they're not communicating, but the Lewis Crow Park has been cleaned up, and I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I'm waiting to hear back from someone. We're getting ready to start planning for the new area plan in Ivy City with the Office of Planning. Also, we've been having some vandalism issues in Ivy City as well, and we just need to collaborate more with MPD about what's going on there. Also, we're still getting illegal dumping. I'm still reporting that. We had a fall festival at Cromel on October 30th. That went very well. We collaborated with a local business, and that turned out really great. The kids had a nice time. And also, what was a nuisance property is getting fixed now, and new residents should be moving into the building sometime this month. That's 1850 Kendall Street. We should have some new residents. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you.
One more thing. I'm sorry. The beginning of Central Place has been turned into a one-way, and everybody is not aware that it's been turned into a one-way. There's signage. This is supposed to have been because of the parking spaces that was taken away on West Virginia Avenue. It was supposed to alleviate that and create parking, but the signs are facing forward. I'm trying to get DDOT to face the signs so that people can see them. So now we're getting people still coming in both ways. But if anyone on here is an Ivy City resident, please pay attention to the signage and be careful coming into Ivy City.
All right, thank you. So 5D02.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have anything big in terms of updates. We did do some block cleanups recently and got a lot of trash off the blocks. Just like we usually do on the Mount Olivet end of Trinidad, we kind of dump it and report it to 311 at the rec center. So just a reminder to any residents that are in need of any services that agencies should be taking care of, please download the 311 app or dial 311 and put in those ticker requests. If you know any neighbors that are not familiar with 311, please share that information with them. I will be doing another a full-wide SMD walkthrough, handing out information about the the current updates on the community. I'm facilitating and hosting Mount Olivet Winter Solstice Town Hall next month at the Rec Center. That's going to be December 21st at 6:45 p.m. People ask me why 6:45. It's because sometimes it takes a little long for us to get to a certain point on a certain time. So we'll be starting on the dot at 7 o'clock. So if you have any neighbors that are interested in finding out more information on the Mount Olivet end of Trinidad, please have them come out. I'll be doing door-to-door knocking, handing out these newsletters/flyers. So you'll probably be seeing me if you're on if you're in my SMD. But other than that, you can always reach me via email or phone if you have any questions that directly need to be addressed to me. Thank you.
Okay, 5D03.
Hello. I don't have a lot on the community front either. I just have one announcement. I have been getting a lot of emails and phone calls in reference to the rodent infestation. I am working with DC Rodent Control. However, when you put out your trash, make sure you're keeping your trash in your vicinity of your house until trash day. Also, when you see dead rodents, please, please, please send me an email, give me a phone call, because what I'm told through DC Rodent Control, that the dead rodents are being ingested by other rodents out. So they want to clean those up, because we're trying to alleviate the problem, even though we know it's a huge problem. It's across DC wide. Issue with rodent control. We're trying to get it, because they're starting to run through our yards and under our cars. The infestation is getting out of control. So we're just trying to help the city come back and contain it. So if we can just follow these protocols, and just to piggyback on other commissioners, if you see trash in front of your door, pick it up. It's easier to help contain the garbage and the rodent infestation if you just clean up around your door. Even if you don't want to be a part of the community cleanup, just clean up around your door, and maybe your neighbor's door, or in front of your street where your cars are. Just those little things will help with the garbage cleanup and infestation of rodents. And I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you. And I'll just add to that, because we're in neighboring SMDs. DC Rodent Control did come out and give information on very many of the doors where they've had the most complaints, so that you have information about how to contact them too. So 5D04.
The only update, the only announcement I have, that if anyone is in need of any boxes, food boxes, Brown gives away food boxes every Saturday from 9 until 11. Anybody can come and get a food box. It was stopped, but now it's starting back up. The boxes contain boxes of macaroni and cheese, soup, noodles, rice, fruit cups, peanut butter, sometimes the milk in a box, apple juice in a box. Anybody can come and get it. We normally give out 2 boxes. I'm down there every other Saturday when I don't have to work. So I will be down there this Saturday. So anyone needs of a food box, they can come to Brown School from 9 to 11, or from 9 until supplies last.
Okay, thank you. And so I am the commissioner for 5D05. As you heard earlier in the meeting, I met with Councilmember McDuffie about several of the properties, 1835H Street Northeast and 826 20th Street Northeast being at the top of that list. We're working to get 826 20th Street condemned. We know that the debris is flying off the building at this point and into other people's yards, including my own, up and down the block. And it's just a safety and health hazard for the entire neighborhood. Same thing with 1835H, where their fencing for their site has just completely fallen off. So we'll have that. We're working on getting that taken care of. Chief Conti was also in the community and came to review some of the issues, especially that we've been having on Benning Road and at some of the construction sites. So we were happy to see him. Like Commissioner Elmore mentioned, we're working on rat abatement issues. And so please take everything that she said to heart about how you're maintaining trash and cleaning up trash in front of your home. In addition, we've had DPW out to address the illegal dumping issues. If you live on the 800 block of 19th or 20th Street and you have rear cameras, please check your rear cameras for a white pickup truck that is doing this illegal dumping of furniture in the alley. That was this morning. Today is November 9th at around 9:30 a.m. You can see a truck there. So if you have footage, please let me know. I'm 5D05@anc.dc.gov. We're hoping to catch this person. We've also caught the people who did the illegal dumping at the 1800 block of H Place Northeast. And they have received multiple fines because they did it back to back. So one was in the mail, and then they did another illegal dumping. And so they've gotten an additional escalated fine. So they owe the city thousands of dollars at this point, and hopefully that will stop. We're still working on RPP on the 1900 block of H Street Northeast. That request is just an ongoing challenge, but we're gonna hold DDOT to their word. So that's all I have for community updates. Let's go to 5D06. Okay.
Hi, I don't have any updates.
Okay. All right. And then 5D07.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just one small thing. If you live around Penn Street or Owen Place or Trinidad Avenue, you might be familiar with the Pepco substation in the alley back there. I just got notice that DCRA has issued a raise permit for the property. And I'm still trying to figure out what their plans are with that site. I've put in a FOIA request, reach out to Pepco and our DDOT liaison, and I'll share whatever information I get in the future.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I move to adjourn tonight's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, very enthusiastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us. Have a good night.